All right, guys, we are live. So nobody throw anything at me on camera. I'm not Bush. If you can't hear me, watch the video. You already can't hear me? Okay, guys, this is class 3. Nice. It seems like it should be later, but we've skipped a couple months, haven't we? Okay, like every month, and I'll admit I've been a little ambitious this month. I think somehow I always think we can get through more than we actually can, but that's good. That means I've got half the class written for next month already. I've actually got one item on here that I've been trying to get to for 2 months now, and it always gets pushed down. Because I was like, oh, we're out of time. Let's get to the demos. Okay. Let me organize my thought for a second. Okay, so every month I like to start off with a little architecture discussion. And this month's is very near and dear to my heart. Because I've had to support both kinds of packages for the last 4 years, and it can really, really be a pain in the neck if you did you see how I cleaned up my language there? If you do this wrong. So what we're talking about tonight is where should you keep your SQL queries in your packages. Your choices are directly in the data source adapter, right? Directly in the OLADB adapter, in a variable, or in a file on disk, right? Those are the 3 choices? Okay, somebody's waving their hands or something. So, off the top of your head, which one do you think is best? Anybody? I got swag. Oh, see? I told you somebody was going to get pissed off and mic me.
Hear you in the back.
Oh, well.
If you got batteries, you're good. There you go.
Hold on, guys. We'll get mic'd up here. And no, that's not a euphemism for anything. Yeah, I know. How's that? You want it a little closer? Is that good? Excellent. I'm sure this mic will really enjoy it too.
Can you start from the beginning now?
Yeah, exactly, right? Okay, so we're talking about, now that I'm fully mic'd, we're talking about where you should keep your SQL queries in your source adapter. Should you keep it in the adapter, in a variable, or on the hard drive? Anybody have any thoughts? If not, you're just going to have to listen to me talk. Okay, fine. I gave you a chance. My personal choice is almost always going to be keep it directly in the source adapter. Okay? There are reasons why you might want to do the other two, but there are far more reasons why you wouldn't. And you'd be surprised how important this is, right? From a supportability angle and a stability angle and a security angle, from all these angles, it's really important. So I actually put together a package with some example stuff in here for you this time, instead of just sitting up here babbling the whole time. So, the only problem is this there. Let me scoot that over there. Okay, so first, let's talk about keeping it in a variable. So what you'll have, and look at that, kept that over there. There we go. So we've got 2 query variables here. And of course it's just plain text, and I just put hello in here because assume it's a query, right? We'll call it the hello query. But this one actually is a query. And you can see it goes all the way down to the select, down to the where clause there. So let's say we've got these things in a variable. The problem you're going to have when you go to doing stuff like that is just flat out supportability. If you've got 70 of these things in your package, and you've got all of these variables down here just lined up, and I've actually got a package I used to support like that where the developer did that, and I had just a whole row of variables. You can never find the query if you need to change it. Not to mention, you've also got scope to deal with. Okay? If you get a guy who likes to standardize things and puts the same query name in different scopes, you're going to be in big trouble when you go to try to support it, because what if you change the wrong one and corrupt your data, right? Not only that, and I've got something in here somewhere. I wish I could remember where it was in here, because it's a cool little demo that inside the source adapter in here, let me just go into one of these because I don't know which one it is. Inside this guy right here. Okay, good. This is the one. I've got two of these guys. Select query Florida and select query Florida, and they're both in different. They're both in different scopes. So how do I know which one is which? Right? This is the problem with being cute and trying to standardize these things, right? So you can see that from this angle right away, and I really have no idea which one of them I got. I really don't. You can get around that by coming in here and going to properties. Let's see, right here, I believe, yeah. There's user Florida, and okay. Well, I thought it gave you the scope there, but I guess I'm wrong. So it's really hard to find which query you're looking at and which one you need to change if you're doing stuff like this. Okay. So that's one problem with it. The other problem with it is it's just a flat out pain in the ass. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The first thing you do when a package starts failing or when you need to change a package is you come over here and you open it up and you say, query from variable. Fine. God, which variable was it again? Okay, so it was select query Florida. Okay. There are two query Floridas. Which one was it? Let's see now. I'll go back in here again. It doesn't say which one it is. I've got two of them here. Which query Florida is it? So it's really hard to know which. I mean, it's just a pain, right? You spend more time going in and out of that thing. Was it Florida or was it FI or depending on how they spell it, whatever it is, right? Which one is it? You keep forgetting and you have to go back and oh God. Not to mention to change the query or to even look at the query, I got to go all the way over here. Oh geez, I got to do this. I got to do this, and if it's really long, then I'll have to do this again and keep doing that again and again. And then for the next one, since I can't really see that over there, I got to come back over here. I got to double click on this one. Okay, good. So that one's that one. Now let me see the query. Oh, wait a minute. What was the name of that variable again?
It shows you the scope on that screen. Did you see that?
Where?
Go back. And when you expanded it out, that
well, yeah, it shows you the scope there. But in here,
the only other way you can see it is
but in here, I know what scope the variables are. But the problem is in here, I don't know which one of those I'm using. I've got user select query Florida and select query Florida. Which scope are those in?
Okay, so it shows you the scope there. You just don't know what one it's using.
Yeah, I just don't know which one I'm using.
So how do you find out?
You rename one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Rename it with the scope in the name, right? If you want to get cute that way. But yeah, but if you have but I wanted to show you that because if you do get somebody, and I did, I've had somebody that's done everything, you'll have that problem. Now that I'm there, okay, so let's say it was select query something or other. Okay, so now I got to go back here. Which one was that? Okay, so now I got to expand this again. This one was Texas. Okay, good. So that's Texas. And I got that over there. And of course, if it were really long, then I get to double click on here. So you can see it's just a real pain, right?
You're not when you click on one highlighted.
Well, it does. It's right there.
It highlights it there, but on the when you're there.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay. So there's that. And I wrote some stuff over here. Let's see what I said. It says here, notice I put the wrong scope in one of them, and you really have to make sure that you've got the right scope for them. That's one thing that can be a real pain as well. If you accidentally scope it wrong, let's say that you want to use that variable in a couple different places, and you accidentally scope it at this task level and you need to use it somewhere else, you can't move scopes. You have to actually destroy the variable and then bring it back. So it's nothing that's gonna kill you, right? It's just unless you have BI Express. BI Express will allow you to move a variable from one scope to another. You had that BI Express look in your face.
I was going to say it's essentially an XML file, right? So you could find an XML file where it defines the scope.
Right. Right. He said it's basically an XML file, so you could go in there and find it in the XML file and change it. Yes. But I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to recommend that in a group of people when Microsoft says specifically, do not ever do that.
The bids helper added tool will also do that.
I'm sorry?
The bids helper, the free adding tool on CodePlex will also do that.
Oh, okay, so the bids helper add-in tool that's free on CodePlex will also do that. So good, excellent. And it says here, look at these. Can you tell which var I'm using? So this is the kind of thing. Now, okay, let's talk about the situation where you would need to hold this in a variable, right? Because holding these things in vars seems like it could be useful, right? So let's say the way I see this a lot of times is I see this in things where they want to make a dynamic query, where they want to make either a dynamic where clause or they want to have a dynamic variable. So that's what I did here, right? All I did here was change the state from California to Florida to Texas, right? So that's the kind of thing that you would think that you'd want to use that for. But what's a better option for this? What's a better option for passing these guys right here, for changing the value of a where clause?
Just use a variable for that. Just use a variable for the value that's going to substitute.
Exactly,
the
right,
dynamically change it.
right. And that's the example I have. So, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now the other reason for that is a dynamic where clause. So if you actually wanted to, based off of some value, you actually wanted to tack onto the end of the query where column 1 equals this and column 2 equals that, and then if it equals another value, maybe you want to choose columns 3 and column 5 instead of 1 and 2, right? So you're actually building a dynamic query. I like that a lot less even, because SQL is so picky about metadata, or SIS is so picky about metadata, and rightfully so, right? That you can easily choose a column for your where clause that causes something funky to happen. And with it being completely untested, it's just not a good idea. I don't like that stuff at all. So your next choice, and I guess I'm going in order of least preference, but not really, because this one's my least preferable, is to store it in a file on the hard drive. And that's one of your other options here. Okay, so I think here's what I did here. Yeah, so what he just said, if you have a variable for that value, so you would have a state variable, right? And you would just pass in that. So I've set up parameters here. I've got the state var, right? And beforehand, based off of some value, I'm going to change that state var to Texas or to Florida or to something, and then pass that in as a variable. That's a much more strongly typed query, and you're going to get you're going to be a lot happier with something like that, right? Than having the full query in there every single time. Okay, so onto the text file. I think I had something over here. What was this? Oh yeah, so this was the dynamic where clause. So the way I like to get around that, of being able to choose column 1 and column 2 or column 3 and column 5, again, is to have a variable, and based off of that variable, you set a function for each one of these and send it down the path that you want it to go. So this is the path for choosing where column 1 and column 2 equals something. This is the one for choosing where column 3 and column 5 equals something, right? So visually it's much easier to support, because you can see that there's actually a branch being made there, right? Instead of it just being a variable hidden inside of a task that you have to now choose somehow, right? And you never really know which one's being executed. And it maintains your metadata much better. This can get out of whack. If you've got like 30 or 50 of these things that you're going to choose from, you may have to go to the dynamic where clause inside of a variable, because then you've got 50 of these things in there, 50 of these paths in there, and now you're right back to not being able to support it very well, right? I mean, it's just as easy to extend, because you just copy one of these and then do a new. See, all I did here was say, use an expression and say where at query where equals goodbye, right? So if it says goodbye, then it's going to go here. If it says hello, then it's going to go here. And none of this works. I didn't tie any of this in, so there's nothing for me to actually show you any green blinkies, right? This also brings up another really good point, and that's what we were talking about before. This is an excellent use for sequence containers. Because look, I can have every one of these things. Now, if I wanted to, I could have 50 of these things in here, right? And they start and finish as a unit. Whichever path it goes down, I can either send a failure email or continue on with the rest of the package. The whole thing acts as a unit. Look what happens if I don't use that. I have to duplicate this every time, right? So if I don't put them in a sequence container, I have to have the rest of the package over here and the rest of the package over here, which means if I have to change it on this side, I have to change it on that side, right? So sequence containers, again, if you put things in there by default, you will not be sorry. It doesn't do anything to your performance, but you will not be sorry because you'll always need to extend the package in some way, and that will only help. You'll be like, oh, it's in a sequence container. All I have to do is this. Woohoo! You know, I mean, you'll really, really thank yourself for doing that. So that's just an aside. It was more than an aside, wasn't it? Okay, so now we're down to keeping it on in a query file. So let me see. Where is that? I thought I had another one in here with query file, but maybe I don't. So we'll just go into one of these guys here. And I'm just going to drag a source onto here real quick. It doesn't really matter what it does. So where is it? Command from variable. Where is the command from file? Oh, I don't think it was in here. Where was that? See, I didn't write that down. Oh well. So okay, using it on a file, and I'll find it and append the video for you guys because I don't want to. I'm already talking longer than I want to. I need to get to some demos because we're going to finish up that text file stuff this week, right? I got some really cool demos for you guys. So the problem with keeping it in a file is it looks really, really attractive because you can change the query without having to redeploy the SSIS package, right? But what's the big pitfall there? Because it's really a booby trap, and it's just waiting. What's the pitfall there? Anybody?
Somebody deletes the file.
Somebody deletes the file. What's the really, really big booby trap?
Security.
Well, that's deleting the file, but the really big one, we've already talked about it. It rhymes with bleda bleda. Metadata, right? Metadata. If you have your query sitting in a file, come on, bleda bleda, really? Who said it?
Someone in the back said metadata.
Who said metadata?
All the way in the back.
You did? Come get some swag. You like to play golf? I got golf balls. No, I'm serious. You can come get something if you want. Just for knowing what rhymes with bleda bleda. I'm just that kind of. That's how I roll. So the problem is metadata. If you change that query without testing it in your package, you are going to be very sorry. Okay, so I have this very nice leather-bound SQL R2 notebook, and I have golf balls, and I have Transcender Study Guide and Practice Exam. Take your pick. You can only have one of the boxes of golf balls. Excellent.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure thing. What I meant to say is you can only have one golf ball if you choose that. I'm giving out 6 golf balls tonight. Probably not to just 2 people. Okay, so metadata. The problem that you're going to have quite often is you're going to say, oh, well, I just want to change this. Boom, right? I just want to change this function from this to this. It'll be easy. Oh, God. So you're telling me you want your package to fail next time it runs, right? Because we all know how picky SSIS is with metadata. You're actually going to see that in one of my later demos, how picky SSIS is with metadata, because I've got a metadata problem in one of them that I didn't get time to work out. So you're going to get to see it, right? So yeah, it sounds really good. we actually did have, we've had both of these happen. We've had somebody go in and change a query that seemed fairly innocuous. They said, well, I'll just change out this column for this column. Same number of columns. Save, package runs, package doesn't run because, of course, it's a different data type and you just screwed your mapping all the way down the line. Nothing works, right? I've also had a guy in our NOC go through there and clean out the data directories for us to free up space on the server. Oh, look at this, a whole load of SQL files. Oh, we wouldn't get rid of that. I'm not kidding. And next thing you know, we're sitting there, the package is failing. Why is the package failing? And get in there and I go to the thing and all my files are gone. I don't know where they keep the files. That was a developer thing. I have no idea where the files are. So I'm waking up 3 or 4 different developers in the middle of the night trying to find who's got the files, right? The good news is they had some on the test server before they deployed it, but they usually clean that up, but the guy got lazy this time.
I labeled it as do not delete.
Yeah, well, like people read that. He said you can append it with do not delete, but like people read that kind of thing, right? That's just almost like a dare.
Plus, it's not included in any of the backup strategies.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. He said, plus it's not included in any of the backup strategies. Yes and no, right? It's not included in any of the official SQL backup strategies. You can only hope that the people that do your Windows backups are doing a good job and actually taking Windows backups. But you're right. Don't count on it unless you back it up yourself.
I would trust it. I like treating myself.
Yeah, I agree. We had a situation, I want to say 2 years ago, where we lost a server and a database, and we asked the backup guys for the tapes so we could get our backups back, and they said, oh, well, we haven't been pushing backups to tape for over a year. We ran out of tapes. So we only keep 2 days on local disk, and well, like I just said, we lost the server. So, anywho, now, all of this stuff, I had a segue at some point, but I think I've lost it. I want to get into something that I've been trying to talk about for 3 months now. Templates. Templates are mega awesome coolness, right? You're shaking your head, you know it, right? There are some products now, like Pragmatic Works, BI Express will give you templates and help you manage templates. I like it. I still can't seem to get off of doing it myself. But all of these things that we've been talking about the last couple months, like always set the application name in your sources, right? Or in your destinations, always set your application names, and always do this and always do that and always do that, right? Templates are one of the best ways to make that possible, okay? Because, okay, so a template is just what it sounds like, right? You can, at the very least, it'll save you 5 or 10 minutes of grunt work every time you go to open a package. You can set up your level of logging. You can set up your connections with your application names. You can set up your error handlers, right? You can set up an email task. You can just say, I've got this email task right here. One of the things I do in my templates is when I've got an error email, I just call it error email, and I've got the groups and the SMTP server and all that stuff already configured in there. And all they have to do is open it up and change the subject and the thing, and they're good to go, right? So if you want to take some of that grunt work out and make your packages more templated, I did that just for y'all. This is a good way to do it. Now, how do you create a package template? It's actually pretty easy. Creating it is easy. Getting it in there, right? So to create a package template, you create a package, any package the way you want it, and save it. You with me so far? Just save it, and it'll save it to your local bin directory, right? And inside the project. Now, if I can find this, that's not it. Here it is. And then you save it to this folder right here, which is Program Files, Visual Studio 9, 7, IDE, Private Assemblies, Project Items, Data Transformation, and there may be something on after that, right? So it's a nice, very long thing. When I do the show note, when I put this on the web, I'll put that in the show notes for you, okay? But I just keep a shortcut to it on my desktop. So anything that you drop in here will show up in Visual Studio. And if I do this right, because I haven't done it in a while, somebody tell me if I'm about to go awry. If I go here and say add new item, there's the one I created. So now you just open it up, assign it a new GUID, and all the stuff you set up, all your connections. So if you've got connections with specific usernames, or if you've got, like I said, the specific logging level that you want people to use, documentation inside of there, documentation templates. I've got a very strict set of things that I require in my packages, and we're going to be talking about that next time. Make the a note that I want to talk about that next time. So this is a good way to enforce standards, right? And I know I just said the S word. Nobody wants to enforce standards. Nobody wants to think about, so, I don't want to enforce standards, man, you know. But if you like anything I say up here about adding the application name or any of the other stuff that I'm talking about, and you wanna try to start doing that stuff in your company, guess what? You're trying to enforce standards. It's, you know, a standard doesn't start out as somebody going, this is the standard and this is what we're going to do. Somebody goes, wow, that's cool. We ought to do that. Let's get everybody to do it. Look how much easier it would be. Well, that's a standard. If everybody doesn't do it, it doesn't really work, right? So you try to make it a standard so that everybody's on the same page. The guys that are right around you, you can talk to them and convince them and get them on the same page and get them excited about it, and they'll go, yeah, this is a great idea. But the people on the other floors and that sit way over there and that don't really know you and don't get the jazz talk about it, right? Or let's be honest, they're just too stupid to know what's good for them, right? They're not going to follow along as easily. So you have to actually force them to do it, you know? So anyway, good. I finally got that discussion out of the way. Now, yes.
So when you create a template, do you
No.
put all your favorite controls in there that are standard, the email, all the error logging, and all that stuff, and then like deactivate them and put them over to the right, so that way when you open your template and you create a new package, they're there for the taking. You just bring them over, unable them, and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. So the question was, when I do all that, when I create all the tasks and everything, and put them in my template package, do I disable them and like put them all off onto one side and then just kind of drag them over as I need them? Correct?
Right.
No. My package templates are fairly minimal. I don't like to put. I like to put stuff that everybody's going to need. That's a good idea, right? So if I'll have like a warehouse load template, right? So whenever we add a new package to our warehouse load, well, I know what server it's going to go to, right? So I can easily put a source down there, right? A lot of times I know the source, I know the destination, so I can put those down there. So you got a standard set of connections that you can put down here in the connection manager, right? I set the level of logging because we've got a standardized level of logging that we want to see. We don't want to see all of the warnings and the pre and the post and all. We want to see errors, and that's about it, right? And then I'll put a send mail task in there. But then I've also got my documentation template at the top that says fill this out, your name here, your email here, your thing here, right? So I've also got all that stuff in there as well that I expect to be filled out. But as far as lots of transformations and stuff like, adding a bulk insert or a data flow, no, not really. I just the stuff I want to be done a certain way. And then because I have no idea what's going to be. I don't know what tables are going to be added. If it's going to be a file, if it's going to be XML or an FTP task, or I don't know what it's going to be, right? But I do know that I want these elements in everything. There's no package I write that doesn't have an alert email. You want to know when it fails, right? And you want to make it, and in my case, you want to make it so that it doesn't fail the package, so that your incompetent NOC doesn't get a hold of it and send you 7 emails 3 days later telling you that it failed. You want to just get the email yourself and let the NOC see that the package passed, right? So that's one reason I really like it, because I like to control who's getting the alerts, right? So I typically will set a package to never fail on any error, and then I control it at the task level down here.
So what do you do when you leave? Do they send an auto forward from your email address to?
Oh, what do I do when I leave?
Yeah, when you leave a company and.
I have no idea. I'm gone.
Okay.
Right?
Nobody gets those errors, right?
Yeah. What are we going to do after you leave? Right?
Right.
So I don't know what they do. And depending on how you set up your alerts, right? Whether you make it a SQL task and you pull the list of guys from a query or whatnot, right? And that way it can be dynamic in a table, or you can hard code it here. It just depends. Because you can't use a group. That would be too easy. Okay. So are we all good on query placement? Any questions, comments? I've got golf balls. No. Okay, so I'm going to close this package. Yeah, sure, save it. Why not? And now we're going to get on to my very cleverly named package. So, if you remember, last month we were talking about, and by we, I mean me, we were talking about when you load something from a text file. Remember, the last thing I said was you always want to put a derived column in there. A derived column transform between the text file and the destination. Does everybody remember that? Does anybody remember that? I know you do because you said, because as soon as I said, and why do you want to do this? We'll find out next month. And she goes, really? So let me see if I can find. Okay, so I've got a file here with no derived column, and I'm just going to jump in because I fear I'm going to lose my time. So here's what I've got. I've got a flat file source that's coming into a table, and I've got an error hanging off of here and off of here. Can anybody tell me if there is an error with one of the columns in here, a data error, which one of these will it trigger? Will it tag it after the flat file, or will it tag it at the table level on the insert? Maybe y'all should do it a little quieter because all I hear are little whispers every now and then. Table? Either? Neither? You said neither? Either. I see.
Depends on how you coded it, so.
Well, what you see is what you get. What do you mean it depends on how I coded it?
Well, if you have error handling that actually makes sure that there's no errors occur pulling that data out of the text file, then the one on the right doesn't fire at all.
Do you see any coding that ensures that it's not going to error out? I mean, there's a flat file. You open it up, and it's just got that in columns.
It's going to fail. File errors won't be triggered because that would get triggered if like the file wasn't there or something, right?
Right, that would not happen if the file
There's a
wasn't
valid
there.
column. It would never make it.
Or the file was open and couldn't get a lock on.
Well, it would actually fail here in that case. If the file were deleted, it would actually fail up here. I'm talking about if there were data errors in the file. Because if you look here, and I think I remember doing this rightly. Output columns.
Yeah, you had all that, rename some of those.
Yeah, see, so I've got 4-byte integer, and I got string 25. So I've actually got these strongly typed inside of here as data types. So these are all data typed. If I pull, say, a bad date, will it flag it here? Let's run it and see. Yes. Let's execute task. Honestly, can't remember which one I did here. And I'll tell you, this file does have errors. It's going into, I think it's a state. So the state on the source came from a state with varchar 20, and every state in the union has their 2-code abbreviation except Texas, where everybody in Texas spelled out Texas.
Did there
Didn't error in any place, right? Wow. God, that sucks, doesn't it? Okay, so,
Did you expect that?
yeah. The question for the mic was, did I expect that? Yes, I did. Okay, so, add, okay, so, we'll get to that in a minute. The reason why it didn't error out at the table is because in order to send errors here, you've got to turn off fast load, and you see
You got to turn it off.
you've got to turn it off, right? So you can see that it can be very deceiving. You can think that your package is running okay, and it's not, right? It's always best to catch these errors up here. Now, the funny thing about this is this was the point of the derived column, and I'm kind of getting off topic, so I'm going to try to rein myself back in because I'm running out of time. Is that if you look in here at the mappings, look at the mappings I have. I've got flat file, source error, output column, error code, and error column. So I've got 3 columns that get shipped from the text file, okay? And if I come in here and say error output, I don't have any control. I don't have any control over that. See, I've got all these set to redirect, okay? You have to do that. If you want to redirect the error rows to another location, to another path, you have to set all of these to redirect, which you can do by highlighting the first one, shift highlighting the last one, and then just coming down here and choose redirect and then apply. Okay? So you don't have to, if you've got 90 of them, you don't have to say redirect, redirect, redirect. No. Do them in a group. So I've got no control over the columns that are spit out by the redirect. Okay? The problem is this. When SIS has a flat file and a row errors out, okay, what's going to happen is it sees all of the rows as an entire row. So it sees it just as it is in the flat file, right? It reads the entire row and dumps that entire row into the output instead of breaking it off into separate rows. Do you understand? Which is evidenced by this guy right here. That is all of the rows inside of the text file that are just being spit into a single row. Okay, probably quote qualified, right? Text qualified.
So you're saying all the columns?
All of the column.
Okay.
Yeah, all the columns. I said rows, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, all of the columns in that row are merged into a single column because the error buffer doesn't know the difference. Okay? So what difference does that make? Well, it doesn't really make any difference at all if you're just going to throw the rows away. But if you want to do anything with them, like, I don't know, send them to somebody or fix them later or fix them inside the package maybe or fix them in another package, then you're going to want those. You don't want to have to take them now and parse them back out in a .NET task, right? Because that's just stupid. So that's the reason why I say, here it is, always go flat file to derived column to bad data. Because now when I double click on this, because now the columns have been parsed, right? So now this guy isn't this guy up here at the top, and I'm pointing like you guys can see. This guy up here at the top isn't the one failing. This guy is the one that's failing, and it knows what the separate columns are. So when I open this guy up and see my mappings, I've got all of my mappings, and I've got my error code in my error column.
Can you go back, because I see where you had that fast load. I thought you had to turn that off.
No, that's if you hang it off. You only have to turn off fast load here. If you hang the error task off of here, off of the destination,
Okay.
right? But see here, I'm just hanging it off of the derived column.
So you can still do fast load.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you have.
'Cause all this is doing before it even touches the database.
That would be.
All this is happening before it even touches the database, right? So you see here, I've got everything nicely typed in here, right? And this is where you would check for dates, because unfortunately .NET dates aren't the same as SQL dates, right? Yeah, and I know I see a whole handful of y'all going, oh yeah. So the big problem you get into with this is like it always fails at the database, right? And you don't want it to fail at the database. You want it to pass to the database and then do something with it or email somebody, but you want the package to pass, right? If you got 4 or 5 dates that are out of whack, you're going to miss 4 rows. Well, you don't have to go waking people up in the middle of the night for 4 rows of data, right? So the derived column here is where, and maybe we'll do a deeper dive into derived column next month. But that's where you would convert it into a SQL date, right? You would check to see if it's in the range for a SQL date, and then if it failed, then you would send it to here, and if it passed, then it'll go into here, and then you're golden.
You only want to have good data loaded in.
Yeah, well, you only can load good data in unless you're one of those brainchilds that, because I think it's brainchilds and not brainchildren, but one of those brainiacs that likes to make everything, all the date columns varchar. Yeah, I like that. You like that, huh? Here, you get some golf balls for laughing.
What percentage of the time do you send your data over to another table rather than just using a text or flat file?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because that's a big architecture thing, right? The question was, how often do I send this to a table instead of sending the error rows to a text file? And I would say, if I don't fix it in the package, every single time.
To a text file?
No, to a table. I always send it to a table. Text files, to me, they're limited in their use, right? You have to send it to somebody, or somebody has to have a file share permission or something like that, right? If I send this to a table, then I can have a task that comes in later or a job that comes in later, and either very easily fix it with a query, right? So I don't have to go through all this mess again to fix it. I can convert it and fix it in a query. Or if I have a customer that needs to see it, and if it's a small amount of data, then I can create an SRS report that against that error table that'll send them an email and say, you've got a report on your missing rows. Go fix them.
Can you open desk table error a second?
Yeah,
And go to the mapping.
I'm getting there.
And what are the data types for that table?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I think I wrote that down on a note somewhere. Oh, sorry. Did you say repeat it into the mic? Okay. Yeah, he was asking me what the data types were for that column, for that table, for the error table. And you're absolutely right. The data types here have to be very broad varchars, so that, because and the first couple times I did this a few years ago, it really took me a couple hours to figure out why my error row destination was failing, because I had it as the same schema as the data that was failing up here, right? So if you've got date time up there and the date's failing, and you've got date time down here, well, you can't insert it down here any more than you could have up there, right? So you've got to have that generic varchar thing to get the data in there so you can look at it. Yeah, so that's a really good point. Let's see, I think I may have even said something like that.
Columns are loosely typed. These columns are loosely typed too.
I'm sorry?
You have it right there, so these columns are loosely typed too.
Yeah.
So that way you hold the data.
Exactly. And in here, because you can map these, right? So in here, in the derived column, I created a new column for the state to send it over there. But I don't want to see the new column that's typed as varchar 2, as string 2. I want to see the original bad column because I want to know why it's bad. So when I'm here in state, I killed state new last night. That's right, I remember that now. But if you add any, so if you've got a couple different columns that you create up here, right? So if you've got state new, state this, state that, because you can add different columns to your data flow in here. In the error table, you will want to see the original state, the one that failed, because if you attempted to fix it and you mess something up and you send it to the arrow, well, you're not getting true data, right? Now, what else can this do for you? Remember, I was talking about if you fix it in the file, if you fix it in the workflow. I'm going to show you something very cool, and then I'm going to tell you not to use it.
Before you go on, do you ever, when you know you're dealing with particularly crappy data,
Okay.
so the first day you turn on your SIS package, you know you're going to drop 1,000 rows, and you don't care because they're orphaned records or something in the database, okay? Do you ever output that to a file, and then before you output the next day's, because you have to truncate that, right?
The
You
file?
have to truncate your error tables every time you do this, or append to them every time you do it with the new stuff. So do you ever take your data that's out there, the 1,000 rows that are bad, that you know are bad, and then if you have an additional one, then only notify on the additional records per day, per week, or whatever, when you run the package? You ever done that?
Okay, I'm gonna restate this both for me and for everybody else, right?
Right.
So if I do the question was if I do an initial load and I've got an initial 1,000 rows that I know are going to be bad, okay, and I output those to a table or to a file or wherever I'm going to put them, but I want to report on the subsequent ones, right?
Any new rows that come
Any
up
new
bad.
rows and subsequent runs, right? Do I truncate it? Is that what you're
Well, do
asking?
you truncate it, or have you ever created a little method where it checks the rows that are bad again to see if they exist in the
Right,
table,
right.
and then only report back, hey, I found 3 more rows on these sales orders or these.
Right, I understand. So the question is, do I truncate those initial 1,000 rows that I know are going to be bad and then do a diff every single day, right?
Right.
No, I don't. I would truncate it. I mean, and I say it depends on whether or not they want to keep those 1,000 rows that are bad. If they say, well, it's low priority, but send them to somebody and they'll do it, right? In that case, I would either put them in a different table for them, right, and keep it out of there. But no, I want to keep my daily processing here clean,
Okay.
right? No, because that's not going to scale, right? If you do something like that, if you keep your 1,000 rows and then keep at every single day you run, that's going to get more and more and more and more and more for you to go through. So now your error processing is getting longer and longer and longer. No, that's, you want to process as few rows as you can on your error processing.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Question.
yes.
What if it fails at the destination?
What if it fails at the destination? Like a data failure?
Yes.
Well, the point is that you're taking care of all of that upstream.
What about the batch sizes? If I'm doing a batch set of 9,000 or 10,000 at a time, or if a particular batch fails, it fails the complete batch or process the remaining records?
Right. So you can. Right. So if it fails at the destination and you're doing batches like 10 or 50,000, right?
Yeah.
There are a couple ways you can deal with that. You can tell it to ignore the error. You can tell it to ignore the failures. You can redirect them to a guy down here, right?
If it's an error in a single record, it fails a complete batch or a single record. That's what my question.
I want to say it would fail. I don't think it'll fail the entire batch. That's what I want to say off the top of my head. I don't think it'll fail the entire batch.
After the bad data collected in the bad table is usually fixed, and how do you load back the fixed bad data?
I see. We're oddly enough getting to that. So the question was, once you've got your bad data in a table, how do you load it after it's been fixed, right? There are a couple ways. And I'm going to show you one way here, and then, again, tell you not to use it. But a couple ways you can do that. You can either start up another task. So if you've got everything in a sequence container, right, you can make the last step in your job to go check the error table and run a scrubbing process and load that bad data from that error table as the last step in your job. Hopefully it'll only be a few rows, right? So hopefully it'll only be that long. Or you can create another package that runs out of cycle, right? That does that. It uses the error table as a source, scrubs it, and then does it. Or you could just do it in a simple SP, right? If it's on the same server, right? Which it probably won't be. But so I would either and I've done it both ways really. I've done it in a separate package that ran off hours, and I've done it as the last step in this package, all in a sequence container. So the very last thing it does is says, okay, it uses the error table as a source. Anything in there, scrub it through this and copy it over here.
You use the same package to reload.
Yeah, sure. Because it would just be, again, because I've got this one here that does the loading, right? Let's say in here was the one that I did that I used for my error handling. So this one right here is the one that I used to process all those errors. I would just do this. So after everything's done, go back and process all these guys now, right? Of course, then you're going to get into more error handling. Now you're doing error handling upon error handling now, right? Because if any of them can't be scrubbed appropriately, then you're going to have to do something with those. You understand what I'm saying? So, okay. So, this guy right here. Or you can do it this way, but don't. And I'll explain to you why, okay? So we're taking it from our flat file source to our derived column. Why are we putting it in our derived column after the flat file source? Anybody? I have balls. Anybody? Anybody but him? Fine. Okay, you can say it now.
Well, for the error handling, so you actually see the bad records come out.
Right, for the error handling, because...
I have balls too.
Yeah. You want some balls?
No, thank you. I don't golf.
Okay. Yeah, me neither, but they're good for throwing at kids and dogs. Okay, so we split it into the derived column so that when there's an error, we get them split out into separate columns, right? Now I've got a little .NET task here, a little script task that's going to fix those rows. Okay, I don't remember what it does. I think it's just really stupid. I think I just because the only rows that are bad are the Texas rows. This is a very limited demo, right? But just to show you that it's possible. So yeah, it says take the row.stateFixed and change it to TX. Right? No rocket surgery there. So as those bad rows, and the only rows we're getting here are bad, right? So these are the bad rows coming into here. The only ones we're getting are bad. You have to sort it. I got to sort both sides, and I'm going to merge them back together, and then I'm going to put them into the database.
I have a question. Can you go up back to the So let's say you can't fix the error.
Right. Now you see, and the question was, what if you can't fix the error? Now you're getting into the error handling upon error handling I was talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a caveat to that, right? There is a way to do this that is more extensible, right? Using the fuzzy lookup. Then you can, you could still fail your package for that day, but you can add those to your thing and you'll just grow a list, right?
See, I'm
What?
Pandora's box.
Pandora's
Opening
box.
a can of worms.
Yeah, I know.
see, I
And
have
if there's money involved in whatever you're trying to fix, you actually end up creating more problems actually fixing it.
Yeah,
It's better if you just send it to a table or a file, have someone review it, fix it, and then reprocess the rows.
right. Don't get ahead of the story. No, you're good. You're exactly right.
because I have something I'm getting from a vendor, and the data is messy.
Right.
So I just wanted a way. Okay, I'm not going to go bother trying to fix some of the things because they can have bad serial numbers, it'd be a mess. So I was just going to say, hey, here are the bad ones, you should send them back.
Exactly. And like I said, this is a pathetic and stupid example, but just to show you that it's possible, right? So, especially with this guy right here, since you can't sort a flat file, then these guys are necessary because the merge requires that the data streams be sorted, right? So these guys are what we call fully blocking transforms, right, as opposed to partially blocking transform, which this is a partially blocking. These are fully blocking, which means that they have to have every single thing in there. How can you sort it unless you have all the data, right? So they have to have every piece of data that's coming across the pipeline loaded in their buffer, sort it, and then they'll start spitting them all out, right? That's why we call it fully blocking, because nothing can move until all of these are sorted and they move down the pipeline, right? Some things like merge which is why it has to be sorted, right? We'll take some of these guys and merge them together, but it will start spitting them out slowly, kind of like a funnel, right? All comes in the top of the funnel and you're just pouring it in there, and they kind of trickle out the bottom, right? So that's partially blocking. But I actually tried to run this last night, and it ran for several minutes and never actually, by several minutes, we stopped that? I let it go for like 30, and it never actually started moving data out of the sort transforms. So you can see it's not a good idea. But this is a laptop, right? But you can see this is the kind of thing that won't scale, right? So this is not, and that's not the reason I don't want you to do this, because I've got one here that uses an OLADB. Now remember, don't forget to set the is sorted button, or the is sorted flag, because if I come in here, and I'm going to show you this in here, I can order it by in here, but I don't have to order it if I know that it's got a clustered index and it's going to more or less come out the way I want it to, right? Or I can order it. I can get away without sorting it, right? But SIS, the pipeline, has to know that it's sorted somehow. So the way you do that is you right-click and go to the advanced editor, because nothing can be easy. You go to input-output properties, and you go to the source output right there, and somewhere down in here,
It's sorted, second from the bottom.
second from the bottom, yeah, there you go, is sorted, set to true. So it's a hidden little property in there that just tells the pipeline that the data is sorted the way you want it to be. Okay? So you don't have to actually send it through a fully blocking sort transform. That's ridiculous. So now that it thinks it's sorted, I send it to a derived column here, because remember, it's the state that's messed up, right? So here, I'm adding a new column called state new, and I'm typing it. I'm typing it as a string 2, right? So this is the code page, and I pulled this right off of here. Where are you? Typecast. That's this one right here, DT string. So it takes a length and a code page. So the length is 2. Default code page is 1252. That's what you'll use. Well, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never used another one. So yes, I've been doing SIS for 15 years. Nobody caught that? And then so once you drag that in there, here, I'll just show you. How's that? I'll just take care of it. Just whack that off. That's what she said. Okay, so I've got that. I've got my column up here. I drag my state down there. Error code 1252. Stop it. 1252. Length 10.5. There we go. And that'll stay red if you get something wrong. Okay? So now that I've got that, I send those bad ones, since I'm typing it as character 2, anything that's over 2 characters will get sent to the bad rows. This is the same one that was in the other one, so you don't need to see it. Trust me, you don't need to see it. Now, I'm typing this again as character 2, because for some reason it was still coming out of here as string 20, right? And that was causing a metadata error down the line. So I'm just typing it real quick as character 2. This costs you almost nothing for such a small conversion. It doesn't have to actually convert anything, right? It's just changing the metadata, so it's not like I'm actually changing anything. I'm just doing a really quick type conversion. Again, I'm merging them. I don't have to sort them because I clicked is sorted up here, right? If I didn't, I would get an error down here. I'd get a little red X down here that says that the streams have to be sorted. And then it goes in here, and you notice how I've got this little metadata error down here? This is the one I was talking about that says state merge with a length of 20. So it's a truncation error. And that's because I probably need to type it here. It's reading the varchar 20 from up here. And even though I typed it as character 2 up here, for some reason it's still reading it up there from the top. I'm not sure why, but I would probably just take this guy right here and copy him and put him in between these two. Putting him in between the derived column and the margin, that would probably fix that. It's not going to kill anything because I know everything that's coming through here is character 2. But you never like to see the warnings. I never deploy a package that has any warnings in it, right? It's just sloppy coding, okay? So now that I've told you how to do this, here let's actually run this because it's got pretty blinkies. Let this run still. I ran it 3 times right before I came here. So okay, so you can see the error rows going across and being processed, and I've got 250,000, I think, error rows. And you can see the merge, how it's trickling through, how this number changes every now and then. That's what I mean by partially blocking. That doesn't mean bringing your arm halfway across your face and letting the punch come in. I trimmed this down tremendously. I think the other files have like 16 million. I think I've only got 2 in here. So while we're waiting on those, you should see these rows, I'm pointing again, these rows should eventually match these rows because all of the errors will be fixed. So there are,
I have one right now where I merged together the original data, or the import data, and then the previous day's errors, because they're supposed to fix the errors in the error table every day, and I merged them and processed
Okay.
them in the assumption that they're fixed. Do you recommend against doing it that way?
the question is, she's got a process right now where she merges in yesterday's errors with today's good data because they would have already fixed them by then. They're supposed to have already fixed them by then. So she's going under the assumption that they've been fixed and she's merging them in with her data. At your own risk. I mean, it's a good idea.
Error out again the next day, but if it's truncated, if they haven't fixed it, then it errors out until you get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. If y'all can live with that, that's fine. I personally don't like a process that is built to fail every day like that.
It doesn't error, it just puts them in the error table for the users that
Right.
they have to fix their measurements.
Yeah, it's all you. Scientifically, there's nothing wrong with it. You're right, because they're just processing again and again and again, right? But the question is, how well will that scale? You know, if they...
It's a small amount.
Okay.
About 30,000 records.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Never mind, go ahead.
Okay. So we're still building up here. So, okay. So a couple of y'all have touched on this. Why don't I ever want you to do this? It's cool, right? Because this is something you could never do in DTS. I can take rows, I can redirect them to another path, I can fix them, add them back to the path, and Sean gets a full night of sleep tonight, right? It's beautiful. It takes a little bit longer. Hopefully you won't have 250,000 failures every night, right? Hopefully you only have 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever, so it'd be really fast, almost negligible. You wouldn't even notice it. But it's a bad idea to fix source data downstream. It's a really bad idea because they never fix their source data if you do, right? If you say, well, these rows were bad and we fixed them. Well, then good, I don't have to worry about it. No, we only fixed them this once. Well, why can't you keep fixing them? What, are you going to undo the package, right? Never, ever, ever fix source data unless it's absolutely necessary. There are a few instances.
If your OLTP system, when you load your data warehouse for the first time, is flawed, and these things are invoices and you can't mess with them, you have to fix those the first time, right? Like, for example, simple things like if they're missing the country. And if it's one of these states, MI, TX, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so the thing is, if you've got like an OLTP system and you're putting it in your warehouse and it's like a bunch of invoices and they're missing the country, is it okay to fix it the first time, right? Well, I mean, you got to realize you're not going to go to ETL jail, right? So it's okay to do whatever you want. in my opinion and in my experience, it's a bad idea to fix source data. Unless, and this is the unless, right? Unless by fixing it, you are then going to write another package that turns around and imports it back into the source for them, right? Unless you're doing it for the purpose of scrubbing it, right? But okay, let's take your example. So you've got these invoices, none of them have countries, and you fix it, right? What about the invoices that they're creating from now on? They haven't been creating countries so far. Why should they start? You're handling it for them. Why should they start? Right? The ETL should be as fast a process as possible, right? You could easily say, and you can say, well, it's just a few rows, it's just a few this, it's just a few that, and you're right? Let's take that to the extreme. Why don't we just take everything from the source system and dump it out into a big file with no delimiters, all Latin style, just all the words are all jumbled up, and then we go through there and we just do text mining to figure out where all the columns are and put everything properly, and we just never have to worry about it, right? I mean, ridiculous is ridiculous, right? So, can you this or can you? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Jen, I'm winding down in 60 seconds. Huh? Okay. So, do whatever you want, but I highly advise, and everybody I've ever talked to highly advises against cleansing source data. The only, God, and I want to say the only reason you would ever cleanse it is if you're going to denormalize it, or if you're going to, if you're going to merge it with something somehow for like a warehouse, right? God, but even then, cleansing the data, that's such a slippery slope, isn't it? I mean, that's just.
It is. You don't know. You really don't know what's clean.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, you know what certain data is defined as country to a certain degree, but defined what ISO standard or your company standard. Or
right.
Same thing with states.
Right. Well, you take the more common error like dates, right? In the past, I've processed dates, and this is where I learned this lesson, right? So it's another one of those ask me how I knows, where I was fixing dates coming into a warehouse for the source. And some of them are easy. If the year is 196, I feel fairly confident coming into here and changing that to 1996, right? I feel fairly confident. But there are some of them that you just don't really know what it is, right? What if it's 200? Is it 2001, 2005, right? I mean, what if it's 205? That's fine. But if it's 200, I have no idea what it is, right? So you're not the owner of that data. And if you fix it incorrectly, and there are so many exceptions, I think you said that, right? There are so many exceptions. Well, what if the data that you fix doesn't fix properly? Well, that's on you now, right? Because now you've taken ownership of being the record keeper of what the clean data is.
We give them formats of certain things they have to send us, and I think they type it in, they don't have an automated process. So I see typos where they forgot to put a certain character in a certain space as a typo.
Right.
And so that's where I'm saying, should I send those back or not?
And just as an aside, you see I've got 2047, 682, and 2047, 682. So I processed all my rows.
But the problem is sometimes it's in between bills, where sometimes if it is an application issue, you can't recompile it. You've got to allow the process to build some rules to fix it. In the meantime, why not fix it in 3 nanos of a second, and as long as they agree?
Because it'll never. Because.
No, that's your opinion. That's it, and you're right. It certainly.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you're not going to be sent to ETL jail. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. But I'm just saying, from a smart DBA perspective, no. My favorite way to do this is to take the errors, put them in a table, a file if they want it. I don't care if you say, well, I don't like tables, I want to get it to a file and have you email it to me every day. Whatever, I don't care, right?
Or send it to the user. You send this file with 1,000 rows, we imported 500, the other 500 failed.
Exactly.
The ones that failed.
Exactly.
Reset.
And when the phone picks up and says, well, we don't have a lot of our records in here, I'm just talking until you come up. And we don't have a lot of record, a lot of our records are missing, say, well, they failed. We put them on the table. You need to fix them. They'll be there tomorrow or whenever you fix them. But I refuse to be the keeper of that data and be the one that's put on the hook when I code something wrong and the data doesn't fix properly. I just personally won't do it. If nobody has anything else, I got to roll this over to her.
Question.
Yes.
Like in data column, like what if it fails in the two columns? The description will say about the first column, or
I'm sorry, say that again?
if it fails in the two columns in the data column?
If it fails on 2 columns, well, you got to code for that. That's the thing.
Hey, Sean, can you
Yeah, I'm
take
wrapping it up.
questions later?
Yeah. I'll stop this.